Boom.
He was late.
It's all right. It was well timed.
Well, now I'm gonna be super late.
Fa-lam. Like how I pronounce the Remo heads. Fa-lams bottoms.
Why is there an A there? Why wouldn't they just... Flams isn't copyrighted.
Why not even an H? Fa-lams.
I don't know.
I've really always wondered why it's not just spelled flam too. Like, why is it F-A-L-A-M?
Great question.
Maybe Flam is copyrighted by Vic Firth.
We should email Vic Firth. Wait, the company.
Can't copyright rhythms. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Aged Out Podcast with me, Evan Worrell, and
Mike Fantini.
And we got a great guest today that is very special, near and dear to my heart. The mentor, the inspiration, the guy who taught me literally how to hold sticks the right way and move them through space and time. The good old Justin Fisher. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, so we're just gonna there's some stuff to talk about. Obviously, Justin taught me how to drum. Had a lot of his lineage of drum stretches back through both what touches, I guess, Mike and mine for how we got into the activity.
Yeah,
his family tree of drums, I guess.
Yeah, he drummed with the guys in college that taught me how to drum. He taught me for a winter season when I was a wee babe.
So we'll get into some of that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I think we'll start this one today with the DCI proposed rule changes. And we wanted to save this topic for him because he's pretty experienced when it comes...
He's seen more seasons than we have.
Correct.
I'm getting old.
Is that what that means?
Just say it.
No, the old Doc Holliday. I'm in my prime.
It's true.
Age is relative.
It's right. But we'll get into some of that stuff and then just also pick his brain about teaching, and he runs a very successful high school program and talk some about that. But
yeah, the high school dynamic is definitely something that I've wanted to talk to him about for a while because he has been in the game so long and had many, many, many successful groups. So just to kind of compare West Coast versus Midwest versus East Coast and how things are set up, why certain areas are better than others. But we'll get to that eventually. I think we'll start with the DCI stuff because, George Hopkins is going to be George Hopkins, and it should be
always interesting. I actually printed these out, so you might hear some shuffling of paper, and we'll get Justin's take on it and then just kind of roll through it. So obviously it started out with a bunch of proposals. They do it every year, which I think is important because the activity's changing. So
all the time,
the rules gotta change. Like they gotta adapt or die.
I agree with that, but at the same time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's definitely things that need to be changed in DCI, but there's some things that work well. And I think, go ahead.
Big difference in evolution versus self-serving.
Correct.
Yes.
Very true.
So, like, for instance, I think a self-serving, to use what you just took off of, one of the proposed rules was, like, George Hopkins wanted to, no, I don't want to have any more scores, go to ordinals. Instead of scores, the proposed calls for corps to simply be ranked by ordinals, first, second, third. The finish will be determined by ordinals, except general effect will be the tiebreaker. So basically get rid of everybody getting scored an 18.2 and you're the first or you're last in the old Ricky Bobby. I was just like, I read that and I was like...
To me, the activity is already so subjective. It's like, I heard so many times when I was marching, like, at the end of the day, guys, if we had a great show, it doesn't matter because it's just, at the end of the day, the scores are just like six people's opinions up in a box, which is true, but if you take the numbers away, it becomes even more subjective, and it's more just like, well, I like this about this group, so they're going to win, or, what I mean? It's just, and then politics can come in even more. If there's the number gives accountability, in my opinion, to the judges. I don't know.
I agree. You said it. I don't really even know why it matters.
Yeah.
Well, and like, speaking from a pure like judging perspective, a lot of times people say like, "Oh, that guy boxed himself in." If you're only working with, like, say you're judging DCI finals, you have 12 groups. If you're only working with 12 numbers and that's it, the likelihood you're going to box yourself in for scores is like way greater than, say, you have 1 through 20 plus all the decimal places. So you can like give this group an 18.8, but you have room to work with. Where if you give a group that goes on fourth place, it's like, where do I go? So he always has pretty radical ideas.
That was a Hopkins suggestion, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like with him, he has radical ideas that hit or they miss, and when they miss, they miss pretty bad. Another proposed idea: no scoring before July 1st. I won't oust these people, I guess, even though it's public information. Guy
Do
from
it.
Phantom, Will Pitts, yeah, whatever. I don't know in what capacity he works with Phantom in, but for all contests before July 1st, no scores will be given. Corps will be adjudicated with recorded commentary and critique, but no scores will be assigned or announced. And
I see that going along with the whole no on-field judges. It's like the next evolution of the no on-field judges until, what is it now, the first regional? Or
Let's just keep pushing the show dates back later and later. I don't understand it. Do your shows on July 8th then.
yeah,
You
like,
know?
and I think one of the rationale he said in here was like people make design changes, and it
Of
gives them a
course.
chance to make design changes without being negatively
why can't they
penalized.
do
It's
that
like,
if they're given a number?
Okay,
Like,
right.
why does a
Yeah.
number prevent you from adjusting your show?
Plus, people don't design shows for July 1st anyway. They
No.
design them for August 13th or whatever
Yes.
DCI Finals Day is. Like, okay, you're not really that worried about coming in 4th place at the first show of the year.
In
Like,
the middle of Iowa.
they don't care. So I just don't. To me, that's like a participation trophy, like rule change. Like, let's give everybody a trophy for doing
it's
well.
self-serving, and let's feel good about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. What else we got? Brass amplification limitations. I mean, who's going to monitor that? I don't really know how you would do that. Add a brass 2 judge at large shows. Maybe. I don't
know enough about the judging setup in all honesty to. Would that even affect anything? What would that help?
So those were kind of the proposals. Let's go here. We'll go to the ones that actually got passed. So this was straight from the DCI.org. I'll just read it off the news article or the release that they had. So one of the most significant changes approved will increase the Corp maximum membership from 150 to 154, passed with a 20-1 vote. Subsequent motion was introduced to increase the limit to 160, but was voted down. So I guess they're adding 4 more members. I don't see that as an impact, really.
I don't either. Years ago, part of the justification was for buses. Let's fill up these seats and make the amount of buses and fueling that we have more viable. Now, I don't understand where that's coming from.
I don't know. I think in the proposal it had something to do with just numbers from like a percussive standpoint. You have this 80 brass, 40 guard, this amount of percussion. But, I mean, every group does different, I don't know, separation from how many they put in brass to how many they put in percussion to how many conchas they have versus how many trumpets they have. So everybody's kind of doing their own thing anyway from a drill standpoint. And drill writers are like, I want this many number and this many number.
Here's a question, and might be a dumb question, but obviously division or all corps, I guess, are 150 members, right? There's a cap.
154 now.
Okay, well, touche. But so previously, you could have 150 members in your corps, and you could divide that amongst the sections how you so chose.
Yes.
Is that how it's set up?
Yes.
And why would they want? Why is it a big deal to add 4? Like, what is 4 going to do?
I guess somebody just found a magic number with you can have this many in the low brass, this many in the high brass, this many in the on-field percussion, this many in the sideline front ensemble percussion, this many for drum majors, guard.
That's got to be another self-serving. Like, I can't find another justification.
Like,
Yeah.
what was it before? It was 150. Do you remember?
135, and it was 128 before that. Years ago, there was another similar bump from 128 to 135, and even then, I can't remember what
It's like
that
7
rationale
people.
was.
Like,
Yeah, that's negligible at best. Like,
I could see like 135 to 150, 15 people is
that's
gonna,
a good bump.
It's going to impact stuff. But
That is
4,
impact.
and like you
4's
said,
not
if
gonna
you
do
have
anything.
3 charter buses that you're renting with 12 open spaces, then like why not fill those 12 open
Yes.
spaces with tour fees and bodies if you're going
Right.
to have the bus on the road, so you're getting the money. That makes sense to me. Let's see here. The proposal to expand the field of drum corps that advanced to DCI championship finals from 12 to 15 was voted down in a vote of 6 to 13.
That's a good thing.
Yeah,
Yes, it is,
It's
'cause-
12. It's always been 12. Like,
we've talked about it's already
Well, I don't know if it's
difficult
always
for
been.
judges to accurately, I guess, rank or slot. I don't like the word slot, but I'm going to use it here because I can't think of anything else. But when you have a large number of groups, you watch one group go on second, but 10 groups later, that's like 3 hours. You're not going to have a great memory of that group in the beginning. At least for quarterfinals, it's an issue. finals, it's less groups, obviously, and you're kind of like they've had 2 previous days of rankings to choose your order. But the first day of quarterfinals, like if you increase that number, it's just going to have more likelihood of, and I think it'll affect the subcaptions more than like percussion scores and guard scores than it would more overall core. Because like I said, by the time you get to finals, you've been ranked for 2 days previously, so you're performing in theory in order of achievement at that point and show design and all that stuff. But it's why we have the discussions about you might have a phenomenal percussion section in the 8th place core. They're at a big disadvantage. They're not going to win a drum trophy.
No.
Even if they are the best group that summer, they're probably not going to win that drum trophy because there's 7 more groups they're going to watch, and they're going to forget how awesome, unless you are just absolutely perfect, undeniable, which we're humans, that has never happened in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't know. Expanding the numbers in finals, I think, would be a terrible decision.
Well, that number, it determines the elite groups.
Yeah.
There cannot be 15 elite groups. 12 is already a pretty bold number.
I think so, too.
You know? It could even be less if you're going to be truly elite.
Mm-hmm.
You just dilute the pool when you start adding 15, 18, 20. There has to be an end.
If you're going to have it's only, 25 world-class cores at this point, roughly, give or take roughly. 1 or 2. If you're going to keep increasing that number, why have 3 nights? Why not just do ticket sales is part of it, but like
yeah.
But if you want to really push that and get people to go all 3 nights, like, or as many as you can, you increase the number. Like, there's no point of having quarters. Right. Just do prelims and finals at that point.
And I mean, you and I sat through semifinals live last year.
I was ready.
That's the most band that I've watched, and by the time we got to the end, like Blue Devils, Crown, and all those groups, I was just like mind numb. I was like,
I was ready to blow my brains out.
And if you're looking at last year, the groups that finished 13, 14, 15, you're talking Mandarins, the Academy, and Colts. And no offense to anybody that teaches at the Academy or designs there, but that hair show is not a finals quality design show in my opinion.
The
Bugs Bunny,
Daffy Duck.
It's like, no, like that should have been in finals, and it wasn't. So keep it out.
Exactly. I think that was the right call on their part.
To me, that kind of becomes the true separator. You know, you can have great execution in that range of placement, but your design is maybe very flawed. It's not very entertaining. It's not very engaging. That's a true elite delineation.
It's not activity changing or something.
It's not.
Yeah.
You're doing the same things that everyone else is doing. Maybe the levels are a little bit different. Yeah, dilates the pool. That's not good.
Yep, good call on their part to not let that happen.
Yes.
All right, see here. Next, the proposal to add a second music analysis judge, which was amended in the caucus session to undergo a trial period during the 2018 DCI tour, passed in a unanimous vote, but was immediately, I guess, decided to just skip the trial, and they're going to add a second music analysis judge immediately this summer. I don't really understand that because I don't know the sheet that well, I guess.
That's what I was
going to say. What the music analysis judge is looking for. I don't know if one is going to be more, I think looking back at it, maybe one is going to be more percussive specific and one is going to be more ensemble specific. I don't know. But
I'm not informed enough. I don't know
I can't really speak
this is going to make
one way or another on that, but I don't know. I think the whole music ensemble judge anyway, like the Perk 2, I guess that is now, the guy that sits in the box, like he does more of a music analysis perspective anyway. Like he's judging on how well the whole ensemble fits big with picture. What the brass is doing, big picture, yeah, like you said. So I don't know if that's really going to change too much or it's just labeled differently and the verbiage is different. I feel like a lot of this stuff is just like verbiage, like
what are they talking shifting about? Around things that already exist, or maybe even clarifying roles for previous judges.
Yep.
Yeah. Which clarification, and I'm all for that.
Yeah, that's never a bad thing.
Nope, not at all. Let's see here. Actually, all right, well, if I continued reading, then it would have said, the result of this proposal means that this summer will no longer be a percussion ensemble judge. So that's what I thought. Instead, there will be 2 music analysis judges, one with a focus on percussion, and the other will have a brass emphasis. So, okay, I think it's basically the same thing, but hopefully it kind of streamlines the verbiage there. Another point of discussion raised during the rules voting session addressed smaller early DCI tour events that utilize a panel of 5 adjudicators. So I guess like starting out in the summer, they'll drop a brass judge, they'll drop a percussion judge, which is done for, I'm sure, monetary reasons. But that led to a motion that they passed unanimously. Man, that's a
That's a mouthful.
Hip hop anonymous.
$5 words.
Yeah, exactly. Led to a motion that passed unanimously to utilize a full panel of 8 judges for those shows, starting with the 2019 DCI tour. So I guess we won't see it this summer, but that always kind of bugged me, I guess, too, because Mike and I have friends that now teach and stuff, and you go to a show and there's not a percussion judge there. So I guess you're getting the experience performing, but you're not getting the feedback, which is what you want.
Yeah, I never understood why.
Especially from a staff standpoint.
I never understood why there were shows without certain judges there. It never made sense to me. If all that stuff factors in to your overall score at the end of the season, to get the most accurate read as early as possible, wouldn't you think it'd be optimal to have a full judge panel at every DCI show?
Absolutely. It's also a competitive tour with an end result based on placement.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in high school, like you go to like a show where there's not a percussion judge, but in the state of Kentucky, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, in KMEA,
to be honest.
In KMEA, percussion does not factor in to your overall score.
Not factored. So
and I think in mid-states, I think percussion and guard ends up being 10% of your overall score.
No.
It was when I was in high school, at least.
I'm not sure now.
Not anymore.
Oh,
I actually
okay.
read that recently.
Okay.
Because we talked about before on here.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, like, why would you not want the feedback? And then also, it blows my mind too, where they have the shows where people are on the field, but they don't actually go out. But then they do later in the season. Like, they're not getting out there in the mix. So it's all just kind of shifting, I think, for money reasons with DCI. Like, they're trying to, like, trim down and be as efficient as possible. But at the same time, it's like...
It's still baffling to me that DCI's been in existence since the 70s, and here we are still fumbling through the judging system.
You'd think they would have figured it out by now.
You would think so. And again, I know we're talking the activity evolves and there's growth and change, but as far as the judge's role, has it truly changed? That I'm not sure of.
Yeah, I think they're almost just like looking for things to change for the sake of making changes. It's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like some of the stuff does need to change, or I won't say change, but just evolve with the addition of electronics, and there has to be a way to monitor that, and there has to be a way to comb through that, and who's doing what, and how much is allowed, and that sort of thing. But like as far as evaluating the kids on the field, like are they doing it well or not?
Right.
But that can almost also go back to something Justin said earlier. Once you get to a point, execution's pretty similar. Like if you look at the top 6 every season, now there are sub captions where one group might be a little cleaner drill wise or whatnot, but all those top 6 really honest. All right, we'll say top 6. All those top 6 groups are pretty damn clean.
They are, and they're pretty close.
And what separates them really at the end of the day is show design.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I agree.
I was just saying move on. I'm good.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
There's not too much more to this. I mean, basically, they voted down a bunch of stuff. Like, let's see here. They voted down a bunch of the rules. Other proposals that failed to advance were ones like changing the makeup of 5 judges in a proposal to do the ordinals. Obviously, that failed. Like we talked about, one person voted yes and 24 voted no. I bet we can guess who the one who voted yes was. The person who proposed that.
His last name is Hopkins.
Yeah. Rhymes with Hopkins. Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much... They said that George Hopkins also made 2 additional proposals, altering the way that scores and placements are announced at DCI finals, and one other one that they said that they would review at a later time. Like, I don't know.
How could you change the announcement?
I don't know why that matters at all.
Just say the scores in order.
That's a self-serving.
At any point in any phase of this activity, whether it's BOA, DCI, WGI, everything should be geared towards the student member experience. And a lot of those, the judging thing, I feel like could be closed doors. Like not even staffs and designers should really worry themselves with it. They should to a degree, obviously, but let this group figure this out, get the experience right, and then that's it, and move on.
That was one of the big things too we talked about, just like with people who teach, like if you're in a design staff, like just design the best show and teach your kids the best way.
Because at the end of the day, it's the opinions of 8 people up in a box. It's not like playing a basketball game. There's not a definite winner and loser. It's easy to see who wins in a basketball game. They put the ball in the hoop more than the other team did. Or in a baseball game, same thing. Football. It's too subjective, like at the end of the day.
Maybe that's why after 30, 40 years, they're still figuring out this judging thing, because it is just subjective.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like some of these people are just trying to play the game and give their group the best opportunity, but it's like at some point you just got to feel like you're focused on the wrong thing.
And that's honestly, the smaller cores that don't finish in the top 12 or the lower half of the top 12, if you want those members to stick around and not like march a year at the 11th place core that summer and then, all right, well, I got all this experience and knowledge, I'm going to go try and win a medal somewhere, or I'm going to go to a top 6 place. The way you get them to stick around is designing an awesome show, having a great staff, focusing on giving them a good experience. Yes. If you do that, for example, the kid that was the center at Crossman this summer, Josh and Jared were telling us, he was in Rhythm X the season before. He could have gone somewhere else, but he had so much fun with them there. Carter. He came back. Yes. Yeah, I think his name's Carter. I don't really know. But he decided to come back. I think that was his second year there this year?
It was his second year. So
he did his first year, loved it. He did Rhythm X that winter afterwards, so he probably could have gone to a higher group at that point. Yeah. But he decided, love the staff, friends of mine are coming back too, I'm going to go do this and try to make us better. If you don't focus on that, you're never going to advance the place your core finishes in, because you're just going to have kids come, get the experience, go somewhere else.
I'm amazed how many people forget that, even at the design level. I've been doing this a long time, and some of the shows that I was a part of that won medals, like one of the indoor shows that you were a part of with me teaching.
Kate's Creek.
That medal, I feel very honored and positive about the whole thing and glad to have done it. But, the last show that I worked with that group as, a part of the staff, I feel better about that show, and it was 8th place. Yeah. That one means way more to me than...
Was that the Guardians one?
Yeah.
That was the best design show Tate's Creek's ever
done. I almost said the exact same thing. I was like, that is hands down the best one they've ever done.
It comes back to experience. That was
I bet a lot of those kids came back next year too, didn't they? For that,
yeah.
Wasn't Electrify the next one?
Yeah.
And look, they bumped to World that year, and look what happened. They made finals because they had retention. They got kids to come back.
It was a good experience. That was a great season. It was fun.
Yep.
But it didn't win a medal. It was not even close. But it was a great experience.
Yeah.
And so the group as a whole got more kids to come back, and they built on that, and they made World Finals the next season.
I think a lot of it's funny too. Like you look at the cores or the names associated with the cores that are making these proposals, and it's like people that are on the cusp, but it's not the Blue Devils, it's not the Blue Coats, it's not Crown. It's like Cavaliers, Blue Coats, Phantom, Cadets. Like it's a lot of kind of that like middle of the pack. Like they're trying to like just make the surge. So like I get it, but at the same time, it's like you didn't get to like the 4 to 8 range by rule proposals or rule changes. You got it by increasing your staff and getting better members, hiring the Mike Jacksons, like keeping the Mike McIntoshes and stuff. That's how you got where you were. It's not by some dumb rule change.
Well, it's funny you say that because I can't remember what core it was, and even if I did remember, I probably wouldn't say it because I don't want to call anybody out in this regard because I don't even know if it was proposed in the end. But I heard something through the grapevine that was along the lines of they wanted to put a cap on the electronics budget. Not the levels with which you could mic your stuff, but like you couldn't spend more than X dollars on electronics for your group.
And it's a slippery slope.
That's a slippery slope. And the only purpose of that, I see it as a leveling the playing field type thing. It's almost like, yeah, you've been successful as an organization. You have more money than us, so you can do this better. And I kind of see a side of it.
If you're going to go that direction, I know the electronics thing is the new thing.
But what about props?
Well, not even there yet. There's groups that are playing on ragtag old brass instruments. There's groups playing on ragtag old percussion instruments. You have a Canstel, Dynasty, DEG, whatever, Company X sponsorship. You have new horns. We don't. You have an advantage. No, you don't. Work with what you have.
Yeah.
Yep.
Play better.
Play better,
Design
march better,
better.
design better.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Crown didn't always have a get new horns Yamaha deal. They weren't always at the top. They worked their way to the top.
You work with what you have. You, you design
thing
for
with
what
everyone.
you have. If it's bare bones, you roll with bare bones. You add to it. You design for it.
But I
You
guess I
work
could see.
around it.
I guess I could see the argument for having like an electronics budget cap along the lines of the NBA salary cap, though, because that kind of tries to keep one NBA team from being more popular and having more money. So I kind of see where.
But are there NBA super teams right now?
I would say so.
Yeah, there are. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. There's a cap, but
It's
it
still
doesn't
gonna happen.
work.
You're going to have guys that want to win rings, and they're going to say, "All right, well, I'll just take less money." But
It's yeah.
I can see both sides of it for sure. I can see both sides of that argument. I could see the pitfalls of it. I could see the end of the day, just, hey man, just play better.
But that comes back to regardless of money spent, there's a cap. I'm going to play because I want to have fun. It's because there's good things going on. They want to be a part of it, which is
People are still going to go to the Blue Devils because
Yes.
they're the Blue Devils.
because they're going to win, because they're doing great shows, great
Yeah.
concepts, great design, great instruction. That's
If I
it.
march at the Blue Devils for 2 years, there's a good chance I'm probably going to get close to winning,
Yeah.
especially right now. So that's just the way it can. Yeah,
How many times have they won in the last 5 years?
a lot.
They won this year, right? They won
They
this past
won.
year.
I don't know if you're spanning back. They won in 03,
Going way back.
Oh, way back.
07, 09, 2010. Cadets won in 11. They won in 2012. They won, I don't know, 14, 15. They've won most of them.
Probably 50% of the last 15 years, BD has won a gold medal.
Yeah, so I mean, whatever. They're just doing it right, man. They get good kids because
They have a
people
system
have good
figured out.
experience.
And
So.
to speak to that, when I marched Blue Stars in 2010, our sound guy had marched. I can't remember his name for the life of me right now, but
Terrible.
he well, whatever. It was like 8 years ago now, or 7.5 years ago. I was talking to him on Eat during our Eat Pack load time, and I knew he had marched BD in the Contra line for a couple years, and I just sat down with him eating food. I was like, how different is BD than how we operate? And he was just like, night and day.
Yeah.
He goes, people that don't march Blue Devils don't understand. He said they have a system figured out. They have it mastered down to a T. And they said it's just a well-oiled machine, man. That they do well because, now granted at this point, they've done so well. So it's like the UK basketball or Duke basketball effect. They've been good, so now the best people want to go there to have a good chance of winning a title or whatever. But before, he goes, they got there by just figuring it out. And they had a system, they were consistent, and it's a night and day difference between most of the other corps and how they operate on a day-to-day basis.
Continuity is important. There are names associated with BD that I can recall going back to at least the early 90s, like Scott Johnson, obviously.
How long's he been there? 70s, 80s? I don't even know. Dave Glide, is that the guy that writes?
Dave Glide, yeah. John Meehan, the brass captain head. Scott Chandler.
But
Numerous people that have been there for decades.
we talked about this with Jared on the last podcast, and you got to have money. Because a lot of these people, like, for example, who was the Tim Maynard? From a bunch of sources that I have talked to, he might be one of the best snare techs of the past 20 years. He did it for probably 10 years, I'm guessing, maybe. Taught for 10 years, 11 seasons. He eventually had to get out because he wasn't making enough money.
Well, I don't know that for sure.
Well, we don't know that. But
I did not know that.
I would go as far as to say, on the whole, very few people make enough money teaching band, and drum corps specifically, to be able to stick in it long term. So,
They're typically doing something else that's...
and if you're not a school teacher or
Right.
something like that, you have to move on at some point. If you want to start a family, buy a house, all these things. And BD probably, because of their success a little bit, and they've got Blue Devils Inc., they make money through that. Whenever there's like a drum line in a Hollywood movie or on stage at a concert, it's Blue Devils people.
They also, I believe, run a bingo
They
operation.
have a
They
very
do. Blue
successful
coats do
bingo
that too
operation.
in Ohio. And Blue coats are one of the wealthier corps as well.
Pretty successful for a lot of performers.
My point is, though, they've gotten those names to stick around because they've probably been able to incentivize them enough monetarily
Sure.
to get them to not need to go do something else.
Yeah.
So I don't know how other corps climb that hill or get over that hump,
They don't.
They don't.
Yeah,
They
it's
don't. That's
so
why
at the end
Trying
of
to
the
do
day,
fundraising and stuff.
Yeah, when you look at sports and this guy is now coaching here, this guy's coaching here, this guy was traded. It's jumping ship to the best thing. Drum corps is just like that. You guys know that.
Oh yeah,
Ring chasing.
Yeah.
I mean, people do it. Well, that's pretty much. I mean, that's kind of, I guess.
Yeah, I think we covered all the bases
rundown
there.
of the whole rule changes, rule proposals / stuff, which will allow us to segue into, I guess, a little bit more of your background as far as, like, obviously at the beginning of this I alluded to, like, you taught me how to drum. Justin did a lot more than that, kind of inspired or led to my decision on where to go to college, like through his drumming at Moorhead, just talking about how much he grew there, how much he learned there. And I was just like, yeah, I want that. This is what I want. And probably it's very similar for Mike with Demond, who drummed at Moorhead State with Justin. But it kind of brings me to a point of, you went to Moorhead in the era before the internet really took off, or before YouTube, before all this mass information was easily available. Like, I saw Moorhead, I was like, oh yeah, I can go look up, Google it, whatever. Like, what drew you to college in the middle of the mountains, out in the sticks, in whatever nowhere land?
Long story short, my band director, as a freshman, it was his first year at my school, fresh out of college, Moorhead State University.
Okay.
And he was very excited to start teaching, and he was awesome. He was fantastic, super energetic. So he got into the gig, and he just started surveying who he had, and this is my program, this is where we have to go. Started flooding everybody with information for whatever reason. I thought he was great. Just he and I really hit it off and clicked, so we talked all the time, and he said, hey, there's this thing you need to see. Okay, cool, what is it? So let me borrow this video, VHS tape. And it was probably 3 to 4, maybe more performances of Moorhead State's indoor drumline from a festival event they used to host called the Day of Marching Percussion.
Mm-hmm.
So I took this thing home and watched it and absolutely wore it out and fell in love. So I had to see it in person. So this event was still going on. So he took me and like another guy from the high school. We just loaded up in his truck, left it like, not even crack of dawn, got in the car, drove to Moorhead, saw the whole event the day, saw high school groups perform. They were bringing in clinicians and guest artists, doing a competition aspect. And the Moorhead State indoor line was playing at the end of the day, their exhibition. Got to see it in person. I was hooked. That was it.
So that would have been 1995?
The first one that I saw in person was maybe 1993.
Okay.
So the videos that he was...
Eric Ward would have been in that one.
He was.
And was Demond in that yet?
Perhaps. Demond.
He was there for like 30 years, so...
He might have had a sabbatical.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was showing me the performances on the video from like maybe 88 or so to 92.
Oh, wow.
Which they won a PASIC championship in 92. So those were great shows to see. And also in 88, I believe. So I was seeing really good stuff. So I had to go see it. So 93, 94, 95, when I was in high school, he took me up.
That's pretty cool.
And it was great.
PASIC in the early 90s, WGI before WGI.
Yeah.
Pretty much where the college indoor circuit was like it.
It is nuts how different it was too.
I
think the WGI might have come farther and evolved more than DCI has in the last 25 years. WGI is like
absolutely
just insane. The change in the drill, the visual packages, the demand, all that stuff.
It's interesting. I had no marching experience in WGI as a performer. It was only that PASIC style indoor. And it was actually the tail end of that PASIC style indoor. I was in the indoor line at Moorhead 96, 97, 98. And that was when they decided to stop hosting the Day of Marching Percussion. The event was just dwindling. High school groups were not doing indoor events in the fall, running alongside their marching band program.
It's a big time investment.
You were hearing more of, they're doing it in the spring now. Oh, okay. Interesting. They can devote more time to it because it's not running against marching band.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we hear, they're dressing up like cheetahs and lions and they're dancing around while playing these diddles and what? So it was a very swift transition. The basic style was just gone. And all of a sudden, folks that were in the group with me at Moorhead in 98, a good buddy for the 99 season, hey, I'm going to go be in Music City Mystique. What's that? Oh, it's this WGI group from Nashville. So you have to do this 3-4 hour drive every weekend to go play the drums the same way that we were? Yeah. No thanks.
Yeah.
At the time, we were not sold on it. It was great to be able to do an indoor line as a part of your college. That was the draw. We were here.
Yeah.
That was it.
You don't have to leave campus, just go rehearse down the street.
Yeah, we just walk to the music building, grab your drum, go to the other gym. You're set up. You're good.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's seems so much more practical than what we did, driving to Ohio.
It always, I always had the question why, and I know WGI formed as an independent entity, but do you think there was ever a chance for it to be, not necessarily with the NCAA, but some kind of collegiate-based circuit?
Well, there were collegiate categories, captions perhaps. There were collegiate groups in 98, 99, 2000 as a part of WGI. And then I'm not sure what year that went away, but I don't recall it being really popular.
Because it's all college-age kids. Yeah. Why wouldn't it have made sense to wrap it in as some kind of, just NCAA activity? Why wouldn't it have made sense? Right. If there's NCAA, field hockey or things like that, why wouldn't it have made perfect sense to have NCAA?
That's interesting. You just basically shift it from instead of PASIC, where when you were there, groups practiced, rehearsed to perform at PASIC in the fall in November at the conference. Instead, you're practicing to perform at WGI in the spring, same way offsetting. That's interesting.
Well, you talk about why it couldn't be wrapped up with the university. I'm sure it's a lot to do with funding, and look at the budget of any. Even down to the scholastic groups, they have pretty high, crazy budgets. Music departments at universities, they're not getting extra.
That's
funding
true,
for things
but
like this,
but at most universities, the only two sports that actually make money is men's basketball and football. Almost every other sport, from what I understand, is a loser in the financial department, and they're funded by the basketball and football programs. And I don't know. It'd be interesting to look at a financial sheet of how expensive is it to run a collegiate field hockey team or a collegiate what's a random men's sport that's not big? Track and cross country,
especially in the South. Especially in the South,
it'd be interesting to see the comparative budgets of the two, what that would be, whether it could have potentially become an NCAA sanctioned competitive thing, or
did you guys have to pay dues to do PASIC or anything, or
no.
just
No.
So that's a big difference. Obviously in WGI, you pay dues to do an independent group.
It was not a class, marching band you sign up for as a class, and so you're getting credit for it. This was just you're here, you're a part of the indoor line.
Yeah,
that was
an audition for it and stuff.
That was it. Yeah.
And you guys won in 96.
95.
95. Okay.
Yeah, so it's interesting. They won in 95, the year before I got there, and that was the group that was truly the one that sealed the deal for me. And I did my few years there, and then they went again in 03 and won, and that was once the PASIC indoor was kind of a shell of its former self. I think there were Moorhead State and maybe one other group. So
UNT or something.
Wasn't even UNT. It might have been because that year was in Louisville. PASIC was.
Okay. Wow.
Times have changed.
Yeah, so I think EKU might have been the other group. So yeah, that was it. Just the two. And,
nobody really goes anymore except for to do snare
clinics.
Ensemble.
Yeah, that
or something. Right. UNT still does a snare ensemble or something like that, but
probably on tradition alone.
We tried to do a PASIC show one year. Were you there?
Yes, I was there. That was after 2010 summer. It would have been that PASIC.
Didn't last very long. That thought.
I think we had 2 rehearsals, and then it would not have been good. Let's put it that way. It would not have been good.
Well, noble thought, and I know we've even touched on this a little bit earlier. It's about the performance and the experience. Part of it is you want to go out and compete and stack up against other groups.
I'm super competitive, and so is Evan. So is our friend Brent. None of us 3 were music majors, so we did it by choice. We didn't have to do it, and we wanted to do it. And then after about 2 rehearsals,
we wanted to throw down and be like, "Yeah,
if we're gonna do this, we're gonna." Because at that point. That was before I hadn't done Rhythm X yet, had I? You had done 10.
I had done.
You had done Rhythm X. I was about to audition for it for my first winter. And so if we were going to do it, we wanted to do it right and be just as good as the lines from the 90s and late 80s and stuff, and like really turn heads. And we kind of realized after a couple of rehearsals, like, this is not going to ever have a chance of being on that level. And there were a lot of factors contributing to that, but we just figured it out. And eventually, thankfully, that the whole percussion studio, we kind of had a meeting and they just decided we're just not going to do this year.
To be honest, too, if we had done it the right way, it would have been great.
It could
for
have.
the percussion program.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like you were saying, like you saw these VHS tapes. Like if we'd have gone and thrown down, people would have been like,
I might go to school
what is
in Kentucky.
This?
Well, that was it. Yeah, that was the attraction. And the groups were huge then, you know. Like, I think the year before I got there, the percussion studio might have had like 30, 40 people in it, which for Warhead State's a pretty fair amount.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for a small college.
In the middle of Kentucky, middle of nowhere.
It's a huge studio. And I can recall seeing faces from those videos, just like kids that get on YouTube now. They're like, "Oh, there's a center snare from so-and-so. He's awesome. I want to drum just like him." You know, there's an electricity that you grab onto. That was it for me in those VHS tapes. So you're absolutely right. I wanted to go and be friends with these people, and I did. And it was great, and I learned from them, and I drummed alongside them. So that's one of those things that was just a great point in time that was able to happen.
Yep.
That's pretty sweet. So you're talking about these faces, and that kind of helped me lead into this next. Obviously, a lot of those people had a huge impact on your life. We already mentioned before, Eric Ward was there, who marched cadets and just great drummer. That's an understatement. Phenomenal drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And
what was his nickname? Yoda?
Well, that's what I've called him.
Oh, okay. I thought that was like an official thing.
No, I don't think it was his nickname, but that's basically what I've called him. Like, because Eric Ward to like me, from like the description of Justin and Chris, who also taught me in high school and was at Moorhead with Justin, is like the epitome of just like fundamentals and chops and just play anything, just amazing, phenomenal drummer. But he's like Yoda to me. And then like we compared Jeff Queen to like Darth Vader, because Jeff Queen's like super famous and obviously a very talented and phenomenal drummer, but he has all this fame. But on the flip side, like Yoda's just like this like humble dude who's just like flying under the radar, just like whatever, I'll drum you anybody under the table. So that was what me and Brent called him.
That's funny.
But
that's funny because that's pretty accurate. Eric was, at least drumming, he was pretty zen, like pretty calm, pretty mellow, very direct. Knew exactly what to say, when to say it, how to say it. No more, no less.
Yeah. These diddles are great, you say. Use Yoda, man. So obviously, these people had such a huge impact on, like, probably your teaching now. Just, like, who else was there? Like, Brian Izard and...
So many good people. So many good
Greg
snare
Strauss
drummers.
and...
Greg Strauss, who's kind of a fixture in the Lexington area. He's just...
Old Bridgman, dude.
Yeah, otherworldly. Just ridiculously talented. Brian Izard was from the...
He was a Cavalier, wasn't he?
No, he...
Am I thinking of somebody else?
You're thinking of Brian Perez, maybe.
Maybe. What? Go
Brian
on,
Izard, he's from the Louisville area, and I want to say he did Star of Indiana, the Brass Theater. It's 94, so it was the year after their second.
They said screw DCI.
Yeah. And so it was a lot of the same staff people were teaching there, so he got a lot of similar instruction. Great player. Like, it's hard to be articulate on tenors, and at the time, this guy could play 3-inch taps that felt like he was just tapping on your forehead. So good.
Oh,
so
my gosh.
good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, like, Todd. Was Todd there, too, right?
Todd Wright was an adjunct instructor.
Okay.
He was one of my first instructors. He taught me in private lessons. And
He marched quads for Spirit of Atlanta.
Spirit of Atlanta.
Back in the day?
Yeah. I learned so much from Todd in that first year. Probably more from him than any other person. Just a lot of sage worldly advice, like, just, hey, suck it up, practice more.
Get good, kid.
Seriously, like I would play one of my jury pieces, and he'd say, "Yeah, it's pretty good. Just need to practice more."
Fair enough.
And that was it. You know, another one of those no more, no less.
Cool. And then obviously the head of the percussion studio at the time, Frank Otis, was there, just driving you guys, instilling the ultimate work ethic, I guess.
Sticking his foot up your all's butt.
Yeah, the ultimate hype man.
Yeah.
You know?
So he would give it up when it was
Yes,
when it was there
in his own way.
In his own way.
But obviously, anyone that knows Frank Otis knows how passionate, especially about the marching percussion stuff, that he was at that time. You know, a motivator like no other. He could get you going.
Get the best out of you.
And if you couldn't get going yourself, I mean, he was going to get you going.
It wasn't an option.
That's the one thing I can definitely say about him. He could get the best out of you. He could get the best out of groups. Sometimes it was through great information. Sometimes it was just through, I'm going to get the best from you.
We're going to do this until you
This
get
is
it right.
going to be great.
We're going to be good,
And
or you're going to die.
We're going to rehearse for hours, and I'm going to exhaust every means possible to get the best from you.
Didn't you say one time that you guys had like a flood and he like picked a guy up on like a canoe or something?
There's various stories like that. I know one of the years I was there, we had a big snowstorm. You know, he got into his car and drove out into the country and picked up these 4 or 5 guys that lived together and brought them in for a rehearsal. You know, it's one of those like 7, 8, 9-inch snow. It's just enough to be cumbersome. No one's driving around. But it was, well, you're all on campus, so we're going to rehearse.
Yeah.
Except for these 4 or 5 guys in the house. He went and picked them up, brought them back.
That's awesome.
We rehearsed.
No excuses.
None.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. All right, so
I want to talk about your drum corps experience, because you marched with, what corps was it?
They're called the Volunteers.
And that was Div 3 when Div 3 was still a thing, right?
Yes.
I want to talk about what that experience was like. I'm just curious.
It was good. To sum it up just very briefly, it was good. I didn't intend to do it. That was the summer of '97 for me. And I was going to do nothing. My high school band director, the same guy that showed me all this Morehead State stuff, who was also he was a drum corps guy. He had marched Blue Coats for 4 years. I believe he was a contra player. So he was just all on top of the end things. Like, he knew about indoor drum line,
Sure.
drum corps. He was on staff there, and he called me up in May. Hey, what are you doing? Nothing. Do you want to come be in this little drum corps? Well, what is it? Tell me more about it. It's a brand new drum corps from Knoxville, Tennessee. Not a lot of folks. We need some people here. Can you do this? Well, I think so. How much does it cost? Don't worry about it. Can you be here? Can you do it? Okay.
Sure.
Packed a bag. Got in my car. Drove to Knoxville. It's fun. There's some talented dudes. Not a lot of them. You know, Div 3 was small. I can't remember what the cap was. Maybe like 60 people in Div 3.
That was the core member cap
Yeah,
limit?
the cap was 60.
Huh.
Yeah, so basically Division 2 and 3 eventually got rolled together to become open class.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think 60 might have been the cap for Division 3. It's either 60 or 80. Can't recall. So not a lot of people. It was a small group. Showed up. It was fun. Some of the guys were talented. They were really fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
I can't really pay for this. I don't know how much it costs. And that was a cool thing. He did me a favor, and it was a prorated fee. I took care of what I could, and I got to do it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I ended up being the section leader in center snare, which was just icing on the cake. It was great.
Nice.
And I had a good time. There's other folks that I know that are kind of my age and generation, and they talk about Division 3. The joke is kind of, oh, that's where men are made.
Yeah.
Because there are talented folks. There really
Yeah.
are. The difference is maybe they're a little green.
Yeah.
Don't have that much experience yet. So you get your butt kicked. Like, it was, all right, we're drumming for like 16 hours today.
I would argue that even nowadays, open class corps probably get their butt kicked more than the world class corps do.
I remember actually...
Just because they have
Sure.
to get them to perform because of the lack of experience. They have to go through the fire pretty much before they can...
We had done a podcast previously with Andrew Kane. I remember he talked about that. Like, he marched cadets too.
Yeah.
Talking about like versus cadets, the world class group, and where you're trying to fit the same amount of like information and like work ethic into like a weekend / smaller amount of time, and you're just like getting worked.
Yeah.
He
Just
said
absolutely worked.
He said cadets too was harder than marching cadets.
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah. I had a great experience. I can recall vividly during our move-ins, my hips just hurting from rapping like these slow, like, 120, 130 BPM, like crab step things for
Oh
just
my god,
hours
those old
on
shell
end.
carriers.
Yeah,
Oh
just
my
like,
gosh.
oh, this hurts so bad. I probably logged like 200 reps on this, and like 3 or 4 hours.
Your Fitbit would have gone crazy if they'd existed then. Like, stop.
I
You've done too much.
I would have loved to have tracked my steps throughout either one of my summers and just see how many miles I would have covered if I was just like walking. Or I would have loved to have done that.
Here's the thing, though, coming from my Moorhead experience, because I was a sophomore and I did this Div 3 drum corps thing, we were used to being pushed pretty hard. And so I didn't really think anything of this. It was kind of familiar.
Like,
it was good.
You got to stop crying. Step your game up.
So, I handle it pretty well. And I think it was a good motivator for the dudes around me. Like, all right, hey, dudes, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do this thing.
Nice.
This is fun. We're drumming together. The weather's great. Let's get better.
Yeah. I think that was the only thing I tried to pride myself on when I ended up being thrust into the center snare position in 2010 at Crown. Like, I was never, the weather sucked, and I can remember instances where it was really bad, and I was never, I guess, the most talented drummer. Like, I could play some stuff, thanks to Justin. Like, I was well versed in rudiments and stuff, but I probably never had the most chops, but I was just like, I just do the thing. Like, all right, here we go. And everybody else is like, all right, here we go.
Well, honestly, in my opinion, the role of like your center quad player or your center snare drummer or your second bass drummer, the center snare has some responsibilities from an ensemble on-field standpoint of tempo and timing and all these things. But if I'm being honest, their role is probably better as a motivator. Mm-hmm. And like, for example,
lead by example.
You lead by example. And when the staff is kicking the crap out of you, you need someone that's been through it multiple times that can be that one who's like, all right, guys, let's come on. Like, this sucks, but we're going to get through this and we're going to do it. You know what I mean? What I don't like is when you end up having a section leader that tries to act as another staff member. I think that can end up being detrimental because you're getting beat down so much and so hard every day. You need that. Open it. Yeah, do it. There we go. Now we're having fun. You need that person that can like pat you on the back, like they're the, I don't want to say the rock of the group, but that like steadfast person that can be that like, oh, crap, if he can do it, all right, I can do it.
Every group needs a rock. It shouldn't be miserable for everyone, and everyone's going to have their days, but there does have to be people, and maybe it's always a section leader, maybe it's not, someone that's driving and pushing and pulling ahead.
Absolutely. Yep. So after the Volunteers, you ended up making Bluecoats as well, right? But I remember this was like a year, I think you've told me before, that Bluecoats had like a massive turnover.
Yeah, so back to the 97 thing. I did my summer, had a great experience. Staff was great. Other guys I marched with were great. I came back for the 98 season. I thought this is going to be really cool. And it was kind of cool. As in, that percussion staff bailed. This is with the Volunteers, that Div 3 Corps. I was still going to be in the line, and the staff was gone. So at a certain point at a camp, the director says, hey, will you kind of run this thing until we find a new percussion staff? I was 20 years old.
You wanted to march. You didn't want to teach that point.
Right. I was still in the group. Like, okay, I can kind of hold this together, I think. They never got another percussion staff. So I ended up being the percussion caption head. At 20 years old.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
No place, no business doing this. Completely should have not happened. But it did. So for a couple of camps, I was kind of working things from within the line, like just running a snare sectional and like, okay, didn't really know what I was doing. Jumped out in front of the line. Ended up teaching the whole summer. It was really cool. Learned a lot. I could probably talk for, 48 hours on that summer alone. Just learned so much. What to do, what not to do. Saw Bluecoats on tour a lot that summer in 98. They were jamming. Just really good. Bill Bachman.
I was going to say, was that when Bill was there?
Bill Bachman was there, so the quad line was slamming in 98. I think Matt Savage might have been the caption head there at the time. Snares drummed well, bass drums drummed well. Like, it was just a really solid group, and they were fun. Like, I saw it a lot and just really dug it. So, knowing that I had some time left to march, that's where I was going to go. So, fast forward to 99, I go to the first camp, and I took some of those guys with me from Volunteers. I took a couple up there with me. We get to the first camp for the 99 season. There's 0 vets. That percussion staff is gone. So man,
staff change.
I'm in another one of those situations.
Again.
Like, dang it, I just And I was thinking, like, oh, am I going to get to be the captain head for Bluecoats now? That'd be cool. But that did not happen. So just jumped right in. At the first camp, it was Eric Hubble.
I know that name.
I've heard the name too.
He's up in the Columbus area now, I think.
He was in the Columbus area. And also an old Moorhead guy. He was there in the early 90s. Like, he was a center snare and he marched cadets. Great guy, great snare drummer. He was just in the area. They got him to fill in. John Merritt was also filling in.
John.
He's pretty
I've met him before.
storied and well known.
Center snare in 93, 92?
Three. Ward was the center in 94. I think John Merritt might have been 92 and 93. I could be wrong. If anyone knows, comment on the video and let us know.
So these guys were there at the first camps filling in. Just I don't even think they were planning to be official. So anyway, they in the snare room, there's like 30, 40, 50 kids. So there's no vets. Who's going to tap off? I just raise my hand. Okay, here we go. I start tapping off and stayed there for a little bit. And eventually, a couple of camps later, they're like, hey, after, individual auditions and whatnot, we like what you're doing, like your attitude, like how you play, like your vibe. Would you be willing to be our center and our section leader? Well, yes.
Yes. At the Blue Coats?
At the Blue Coats, yes. This is fantastic. Yeah, this is like Christmas. Oh, like, yes. Yes, this is great. Wow, what did I do to deserve this? And, just right place, right time. A couple of camps go on. Those guys don't come back.
That percussion staff?
Yeah, the temporary guys filling in, they're gone.
Oh, they were just temporary.
Like John Merritt and them.
Yeah, they were temporary, so they were not back. And those other folks, and it got really weird, really awkward. Just you get the vibe that this is not going to be good. This is not.
The summer's not going to go well. And I think the '99 summer was not a good summer for the Blue Coats.
They finished 13th.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that in alumni night or something.
Very few years, if not like maybe the only year they've been outside of finals that '99 season. They were 13th. Did not have a good feeling about it, so I didn't do it. One of the guys that I took up from the volunteers, he ended up marching in the tenor line. I think he had a good experience because he stayed there for a couple of years after that. But for me, it was not a good fit. I could tell that it was not going to
making your stomach feel queasy. You're like, oh,
yeah, just not. This is not going to work. And I heard later on from some of the guys that marched that summer that they had a good experience because obviously you bond together and you make the thing happen. But it was one of those they got their butts.
It was a hardship
handed to them on a daily basis.
Dang.
Yeah.
Wow. You could have changed that, Justin.
I could have.
You could have been tapping off there.
You could have had him in 12th.
You could have gotten him in 12th.
Yeah. So after that, I was done.
That was your age out summer, or you?
My age out summer. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, so obviously we talked about your experience in Moorhead, how you got into Moorhead, experience with drum corps. I guess to fast forward a little bit, graduated. My first run in, so you've had, I guess when I first ran into you was at Henry Clay my sophomore year, but at that point you've taught a couple other places previous to that, right? Like Shelby County.
Yeah, and that was only for
helping out.
Yeah, just kind of getting my foot in the door in Kentucky. Todd Wright was there for a while, so he had me come over. And
that was in like the early 2000s.
Yeah,
right?
2001.
With like Seth, who we know, Whitaker.
Yeah, Seth Whitaker and
Jared Andrews.
We're both in that line.
Relocated back to
who
wants Seth Whitaker, the center snare for
cadets in 06.
Jared Andrews, the center snare for cadets and quad player at BD.
Wait.
Or no, center quad player at cadets.
He never...
Now teaches at BD.
So that was a fun little group, and I was just there for camp, but that was my first teaching experience in Kentucky, and I was like, if this is like this everywhere, these kids can play. Like, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm in the right spot.
Todd had some good groups, man, when he was in that time period. He had some really good...
Those early 2000s Shelby County kids could.
Funny story about Jared Andrews real quick. Todd, I remember I taught with Todd after I graduated high school and was in college and whatnot, and I asked him about Jared, and I said, did you ever think that he would end up where he was? And he goes, he was a kid that the first time I saw him hold sticks, I 100% thought, like, this kid needs to do nothing with this. He is made to do this.
That's awesome.
And it was funny, he almost didn't do it, because apparently he was playing football at the same time.
He looks like a football player.
Yeah, well, I don't think he was always that big, but he's pretty big now, muscle-wise. But when he was younger, Todd told me a story, and I think it went something like he was debating between band and the drum line and like playing football. But I think he was doing both for a little bit, like practicing on the football team as a freshman and also like drumming and stuff with them. And Todd said, like, yeah, like I said, he knew this kid needed to play drums, like some kind of percussion or drumming. This kid needed to do it. And I think he ended up getting like hurt playing football, like somewhat injured. Whether I don't know if it was an arm or a leg, some injury. He got hurt, and so that kind of made the decision for him. Like he got hurt, and he was like, "Well, I can't play football anymore this season, so I guess I'll just do band." And I think he was in the front ensemble that year because he couldn't march because of the injury or something. And so that was how he ended up having the decision made for him to do band over pursuing football fully.
It's marching percussion's gain, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So obviously you taught there. And then I guess you got hooked up with Chris, who you went to Moorhead with. Chris Logue, who now lives in Texas and can't hang out with any of us. Or
he moved to Texas?
Or return a phone call if you're
Texas?
listening. Yeah, he's in Texas now.
Okay. Random.
But, so had Chris already been at Henry Clay, or did you guys just like get the gig together?
Got the gig together. He actually got the call because of Todd Wright. The band director at Henry Clay was brand new. Had worked with Todd Wright. Called Todd Wright. Hey, I need a percussion staff. Todd called Chris. Chris and I were roommates. That's how it started.
So that was 2003? Two. Okay.
Yeah, it's all history from there.
It's all history from there.
It really is.
So you guys got into Henry Clay. Obviously, I guess the fall of 2004, my sophomore year, was when I was introduced to the old Henry Clay. I transferred, met Justin and Chris. They're probably like, who is this kid trying to come in here and play traditional grip? We don't do that. And actually Nick Dietrichson was taught that camp too.
Yeah.
With you guys.
I taught with Nick for a couple seasons of high school when I was in college. He's really cool.
Nick Dietrichson and I think he's wearing a straw hat at those days.
That sound. He still wears a straw hat when he teaches. He still does.
He definitely was.
Marched Boston Crusaders, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Started taking lessons with Justin, and that was when my whole world changed as far as a rudimental / percussionist. But I guess that brings me to this. So from there to like now, obviously that's a long span of time, but just teaching over the years and seeing kids and developing kids and bringing them from the process of being green to mediocre to proficient to distinguished at a certain skill trait. Like how much has your teaching philosophy, and this is like a really packed in question, I guess, changed over the years, or what sort of shifts have you kind of seen in yourself as approach to kids and letting them grow in a certain area versus all the areas, or making sure they're well-rounded versus specific in an area?
When I first started, obviously when you're young and, out of college and out of drum corps and indoor and all that stuff, you kind of want to change the world just because you're excited to get into it. I initially had the mindset, from the total percussion standpoint, everyone should be able to do everything just because that's the way I was taught. I came to realize 4 or 5 years in that everyone can't do everything. They can't. They're not talented enough. They're not going to work hard enough. This is not their love. This is not their passion.
They don't like it, yeah.
They just don't like it sometimes, and that's fine. But it took a little bit of time to realize that. Once I made that shift, things got a lot easier. Mm-hmm. Once I realized that, little Johnny is a good snare drummer.
Let him play snare drum.
Play snare drum. He's going to play snare drum. It got a lot more fun for little Johnny and for me. He's having a great time, and then you start to find other students that find their roles, and it just starts to work. And it's no longer little Johnny's miserable playing bells.
Little Johnny's having a blast marching snare drum around the field because he worked towards it, earned it, and he gets to do what he wants now.
So the biggest shift for me was, I'm going to get kids in a spot where they're having fun, where they're successful, and that's going to work, and it did. Obviously, I'm always keeping an eye on, I've got very few kids that go on and do music. Most everyone else graduates and they go on and they do their thing, whatever that's going to be. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, ditch digger, car washer, fruit picker, you name it. They're going to go do their thing. So the music kids that I'm going to go do music, they do get shifted around. They do get more of that total experience. I make sure that happens.
Yeah.
But in general, it's who's going to be the most successful and have the most fun where. Okay, that's where you go. and that's worked.
It's refreshing for me to hear that, because I battled with that a little bit when I was in high school. I was a kid that I wanted to play snare drum, and I was going to march snare drum, and I ended up I got to for my sophomore, junior, and senior year, but I was forced, and now it was, if I could have just not done concert band ever, I would have been totally okay with that. I knew I wasn't going to major in music in college. I knew I wasn't going to ever do anything with music. I just wanted to march snare drum. I got hooked on it. Saw drum corps. Demond instilled like this drive towards it in me. It got me excited about it. But I had to put all this time into, I think they forced me to do a marimba solo at solo and ensemble one year, and I did it. I hated every second of it because I didn't want to play marimba. I looked at drumming as my sport. Like, it was a competitive activity that I was naturally inclined to be pretty good at. That's what I wanted to do. And I wish that I didn't have to take band class. I wish I didn't have to do percussion ensemble. I just wanted to play snare drum. So I totally, it's refreshing to hear you say that when you have a kid that wants to play snare drum or wants to play tenors or wants to play marimba or whatever, and they already know, like, I'm not going to study percussion after high school. Like, I just want to do this.
I'm sitting here having the thought that I wish I could have taught you in high school, because all those things are valid and they can all make you a better snare drummer. I wouldn't have forced you into it, but you can learn so many other things from the other aspects and areas of percussion.
What I will follow up with is there were benefits to getting the experiences and being in percussion ensembles, from just ensemble timing, understanding, and playing in an ensemble.
Yeah.
There were benefits of it. And I get it. But as a 17-year-old kid, it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to play snare drum.
Well, I think there's a big difference in, like, forcing a kid to do a marimba solo versus requiring a kid to be in concert band and symphonic band, and a part of your piece is to play the marimbas.
Because
or the bells.
In percussion ensemble,
and that's a different thing.
You can give that drummer kid, all right, you're going to play this concert bass drum part, or you're going to play this concert snare drum part because you're naturally good at that. That's what you want to do. That's fine. And I got to do that some. Todd tried real hard. There was one time I had a xylophone part in some piece for some concert we were doing, and I was. Obviously, when you're a good drummer, like, your hands do what you tell them to. Yes. Like, so I could play xylophone parts, I could play marimba parts, and he's like, "You sure you don't want to major in percussion?" I was like, "No, leave me alone. It's not what I want to do."
And I think Justin can probably elaborate on this too. But, like, I feel like in my mind as a student, and, like, now after I've graduated from high school and college as an educator, and I teach private lessons and that sort of thing. As an educator, like, your job or my job is to feel like I give kids the information to do with what they want to do. So if a kid wants to be an all-around musician, I'm going to give them the information. If they want to approach that and soak it in and apply that all around, yeah, that's fine. But I'm going to give them the information for instance, when I was in high school, we had percussion ensemble. We took the theory and we learned about all the theory, and we had to pass all our scales and major, minor, harmonic minors, all that sort of stuff. And we had to learn about all those aspects. Now, for me personally, I knew I wasn't going to major in music, similar to you weren't. But if I was, that information was given to me to where I could build upon it.
For sure.
Yes.
I didn't choose to use it, which is me. I wanted to kind of focus myself similarly. I wanted to drum, so that was my focus. But I think that's more of along the lines of, like, what Justin's saying is, there are kids that you can see have a path that are more linear and streamlined. Like, I want to do this. I want to play quads. I want to play marimba. I want to play timpani. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, you teach everybody everything, but obviously you just have to recognize this kid doesn't want to do everything to, like, the nth degree. He wants to do this one thing, and that makes sense.
Yeah. So I would definitely say I don't cater to kids and their interests, but I steer them more towards their interests than in other directions. You know, I have kids that will just out and out say, I hate playing with a wind group. And I don't belittle them. I don't, whoa, you should. It's okay. I get it. I understand. It can be
I never like doing it either.
It really can be not that interesting for a percussionist. It can also be super interesting depending on the pieces you're playing and the person putting it together. I don't force it. And when that happens, okay, so you love playing marimba? Well, let's find some cool marimba literature and get you to dig into it. Let's get you some lessons. We do a solo and ensemble event, which is fantastic. We don't require the kids to do it. We urge them to do it. And we don't tell them, you're going to play snare drum for this solo and ensemble thing. I'm very much, what do you want to do? Okay.
Let's work on that.
Snare? Let's work on that.
Awesome.
It's their choice because, in our percussion class, they might be playing suspended cymbal for a month. And then the next piece, they might be playing lead marimba for a month. The percussion family is pretty vast. It just depends on the kid. So that way, there's no wasted time. They're working on something that they're really into that could also be, steps above this ensemble material. And they're digging into something in the percussion world that they're into.
Yeah.
And, it's coming back to our drum corps discussion and tiers and placement and whatever. It's experience. I'm really boiling a lot down to the experience these days. Like for the students, the members, like, is it fun? Is it memorable? If you can achieve that, then you've got a winner. Maybe not a medal winner, but you've got a winner.
Yeah.
You've got something special.
Experience is a big deal, and I don't think I've ever referenced my wife on this podcast before, but I think where she is a middle school band director, that is a big part of her job or like her success and why she does well to retain kids in a 11, 12, 13-year-old range is she gives them a good experience. Like, yeah, she teaches them and she's hard on them, and I think they enjoy being pushed by her because they realize, like, I'm getting better at this, I'm achieving this, like I can see the progress. But she also does things with them where she takes trips, she takes fun adventures, she takes them to St. Louis, Atlanta, because it's an experience. And if kids going on a field trip to St. Louis or Atlanta is an incentive for them to stick around at that age where they don't really know, then like that's experience. Like, yeah, like I had a good experience doing band because we had fun with my kids and my friends. You're
connecting music to positive things, which is really what it's all about. Boil down when you get in your car and you're listening to whatever on the radio. It's because it makes you feel good and you enjoy it. Why do you go see a concert, your favorite group? You enjoy it, you have fun. So a lot of music can really be boiled down that simply. So I totally understand why folks get into situations where, learning these notes, this instrument. If it doesn't speak to them, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So why force it?
Cool. There's one last thing. We've been going for a little while here. There's one last thing I want to talk about. It's kind of changing subjects a little bit, kind of going a little more serious here and less abstract. As someone that's kind of been in the game throughout the entire evolution of WGI and DCI, from the starting point of DCI in the late 80s, you kind of saw some of that as you were growing up, and then experienced the 90s, and then have watched it throughout the 2000s so far. And the same thing with WGI. You've watched it basically be born from nothing and then go to where it is now. And this is a question I know I've asked other guests we've had on here. I just like getting different perspectives on this. Can it ever become mainstream? Can either one of these activities ever find a way to break through to the general public? Because I've never shown either activity to anyone and not had them go, man, that's really freaking cool. Like, I didn't know this existed. That's awesome.
I'm going to say no.
That's how I feel.
That's what he feels.
That's what I feel.
I'm up in the air.
Like, no,
I asked the question.
No.
I asked the question because I'm torn. It's almost to me like a coin flip at this point.
Yeah.
I think I feel like the three of us probably think this is a nationally recognized event. Like this is all across the country, and it is, but it's in much smaller numbers.
If you were to poll the crowd,
because I think this is why it requires a sense of background, skill set, and knowledge to appreciate it at the level we do, as opposed to like sports where like you can just watch somebody run and be like, that dude is super freakish athletic.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say in my time in the activity, I think over the last 15 years, the music selections have become more accessible. That doesn't mean that they're still not from a very small pool of fans and appreciators.
Most of the crowd at most DCI shows are members, parents, and alumni, of course.
Yes.
And that's really it.
Yes.
It's a self-feeding activity in that sense. Like, it's not...
Who goes to the high school marching band shows?
Parents and future former students.
Yeah, the athletic director's not showing up. The football team's not showing up to support it. I mean,
I've never
maybe they are, but
encountered an individual at any show that's just there because they love it and they're not tied to someone performing or teaching
or done it before.
Right.
Yeah,
that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's plenty of people that go to baseball games, hockey games that never played a single game of hockey in their life.
They're social events.
Yeah, that's true.
Even when we're designing our marching band shows, something that's always in the back of my mind, and fully aware that we're creating these shows for this small niche audience, I always think about, we're playing some of these shows at a football game. So there's some cheerleading dad that's over at the concession stand eating a hot dog. Like, what's he thinking during our halftime show? You know? It's always in the back of my mind.
That reminds me, there was the 2012, there was the Mid-South Regional at WKU, Western Kentucky University, and Evan and I rode over to the show from the rehearsal facility in his car, and we parked in their fitness center parking lot. Now, we're already in uniform. Like, we're in our freaking white Power Ranger
or whatever.
And we had our drums in the trunk. So we had to walk from the parking lot all the way over to the warm-up zones. And to do that, like, one side of the fitness center is window with a bunch of treadmills in front of it. So we basically put our drums on in uniform and just, like, walked in front of this window in front of all these people running on treadmills and stuff and ellipticals. And we got past it, and I was like, what do you think they were thinking as we walked past all of them?
Where's the nerd?
Yeah, like, is this like Comic-Con or what's going on?
Look at these idiots.
This reminds me of a story of 2010. So we're on tour at Crown, and we're staying at some high school like we always do. And our staff is sleeping in a separate room where, like, the whole core is in the gymnasium, but the staff's sleeping somewhere else, whatever. The percussion staff is in what I'm assuming is the wrestling room where they have wrestling practice. Well, the kids for the high school show up for wrestling practice, and the staff is still asleep or whatever. These people don't really know it. The wrestling coach is there, and they're telling us these stories. And they're like, "Coach, like, what are all these kids doing?" And you can censor this if you want, but this is not
I don't know how to do that. So
this is not a derogatory statement towards anybody. But the coach goes, I don't know, some traveling faggot circus band or something. So that's basically like what their perception of us is. Yeah. And they're just telling us this story. And so we just adopted, like, yeah, that's what we are.
But there's a flip side to that, though, too. I cannot remember what drum corps it was or what university they always rehearsed at. But the football coach or the basketball coach would always bring his team out to watch part of a rehearsal, like an ensemble rehearsal, and he would tell his players, if you guys work as hard as these kids work for 90 days straight.
I think that's the University of Southern California, actually, and I don't know why I know that, but I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about.
Because I don't know who told me the story, but I thought it was awesome when I heard it. And basically, he brings his players out there to show them the work ethic and say, if you guys give me in practice every day what these kids are doing for 90 days straight, we will win a national title this year. And just because the work ethic is ridiculous. If you think about what the members do on a daily basis and what they go through and how hard they push themselves mentally and physically, it's probably true if a basketball team would give that much effort and focus every day in practice for their basketball season, they'd probably win a lot more games.
There really is nothing like music out there. It's the folks that don't go on to do music as a living but end up doing something else. If they take something away from music, just that,
the work ethic, man.
The work ethic, and just there's something that can enrich my life and make it better, than anything that we do, we talk about, we discuss, it's a win.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah, man.
I think that's a pretty solid one to close this one out. So
it's a solid piece of advice to leave our enriched viewers with.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel you're listening to this on. Follow us on Facebook. Like us there too, facebook.com/AgedOutPodcast. Follow us on Instagram at, again, as always, AgedOutPodcast. Did I miss anything? I think that covers it. Facebook, Instagram, subscribe.
Yeah, send us messages if you have questions.
Yeah, if you have questions,
hit us up.
Make a comment. We have the email address, agedoutpodcast@gmail.com. Submit a question there. We'll address it the next time we record.
Peace.